Hello and welcome to Data Trends in Media and Entertainment. I'm your host, Alex Guyette, VP of Sales at Caserta. Having worked with industry-leading publications and global entertainment providers, I understand what it takes to extract value and data in the ever-changing media and entertainment industry. What I've seen is that the media and entertainment industry is experiencing unprecedented change. Media companies are sitting on mountains of data, but deriving value has proved challenging. New consumption models, the adoption of digital, and increased industry competition means that monolithic data systems can no longer keep up. Today, we have three panelists who are delivering innovative, state-of-the-art solutions that drive media and entertainment organizations to success. So without further ado, let me introduce Nate Rockowitz. He's a senior strategy executive who has successfully built data science teams and solutions to drive and meet market demand. He was at HBO for 18 years and then A&E for some time and the video game space for 3 years. And now he leads the data program as Chief Data Officer at Gannett USA Today Network. So he's definitely taken the tour across the different media verticals. Hillary McTigue is a forward-thinking, proven senior IT leader with over 15 years of experience in the information technology field. She is currently the VP of Engineering at Ticketmaster and has extensive experience managing large-scale transformation IT programs. Some of her accolades include implementing large-scale enterprise software and data transformation projects, directing cutting-edge AWS migrations, and providing architecture assessments and modernization recommendations. And last but not least, Aileen Blass is our head data strategist and a strong data leader with experience implementing cross-functional solutions and strategies that bridge the gap between business and IT. She's led a number of projects for media and entertainment clients here at Caserta, as well as over the course of her 20-year career with working with data. Hillary, let me start by asking you about the biggest disruptor in your respective part of the media segment right now.
Yeah, there's quite a few, but I would say the biggest one for us lately is the emergence of mobile-only digital ticketing. And the pandemic has really escalated the need for that, and it's accelerated it. And so that's been it's been an exciting challenge and trend to navigate. Clearly you talk a lot about data, so all of this is data driven. We have to really work on scaling our systems to handle the load and the volume and the speed of entry into events with digital ticketing. So for us, it's something that's been really exciting, and maybe one of the good things of the pandemic is that it's accelerated that effort.
Wonderful. Nate, I know you have a perspective about disruptors and your segment of the media space right now.
Well, I mean, the whole media industry has been disrupted for the past 20 years by digital. I mean, take us all the way back to Napster, back there. And you and I were joking yesterday about how I'm kind of a Crayola crayon box of media experience across radio and subscription television, advertising television, video games, and now news publishing, and all of it's been disrupted, and that's natural. And so, as media organizations, we must be in a world here where we are naturally evolving at all times, right? We talk about digital transformation and data transformation. That's just table stakes at this point. We've got to be able to adapt, change, test, learn, adopt the scientific method of, hypothesizing on certain opportunities, right? And then using data and data science and analytics to validate those or invalidate them. And even in invalidating those opportunities, we're still successful. And so absolutely, I mean, we live in a world of disruption. And I'm really looking forward to this call today as we explore some of the examples.
Alex, I find it interesting hearing Nate and Hillary talk about the disruptors. because they're both giants in their industry. So Gannett and Ticketmaster. And so typically people think of disruptors as the little guy coming from the side being the disruptor to this industry that's existing. But what we have are two examples of the big guys being their own disruptors. And I think that's even more challenging than the little one trying to take on a piece of the market. They're saying, here's our successful business model. We're now going to disrupt it and be more successful in a different way than we were before. And there's no room to lose. The little guy loses, like, all right, we'll just start again. I'm a little startup, I got 10 people. These are massive organizations that have a client base they can't let down. And so to be a disruptor when you're already a giant and the incumbent, I think is even more impressive than just kind of getting along and going along. So I don't know, just my 2 cents. I think it's pretty impressive that these two groups have been their own disruptors.
Such a good
You
point.
if you don't disrupt yourself, somebody else will disrupt you.
Exactly.
So thinking about the roadmap for where your organization is going, Nate, what is the next wave of like recommendation engines? Like what does the next generation of recommenders look like for you?
Well, I think it's interesting because, as people step into, data science, individuals, myself included, and students and, independent projects, they tend to focus on these recommenders, right? It seems like a natural thing. And so many people, Amazon made collaborative filtering famous, which means collaborative filtering is this world of where people who liked this also liked this other thing, right? And so that's been around for decades at this point. But in the world of recommendation, and I think about, Netflix gets a lot of credit for this, still collaborative filtering. And we were doing some of this at HBO and at A&E. And, the world of recommendation is about really, the world of media, which is about creating a delightful experience for consumers, right? And of course, it's got to be, revenue maximizing for the company involved as well on, we're public companies here. But it's about creating that delightful experience for consumers. And so how do you create a personalized experience that really causes that consumer to be thrilled with their experience and their engagement with you, whether it's Ticketmaster or whether it's HBO or whether it's Netflix or whether it's Spotify or whether it's Gannett on the news publishing side with USA Today. It's really all about that personalization. And so the more that you can bring together into a single source of truth in a data lakehouse, in our case, or into a CDP platform, a customer data platform, to bring together that data that can create that experience for consumers in a privacy protecting way, but in a delightful way as well. There are many different ways that recommendation engines are coming together. And these can be things like collaborative filtering, which is the standard one, right? That's like table stakes. Collaborative filtering is table stakes. What gets me excited, though, is when you start to look at other ways of doing it. And so one example I think of is at A&E Networks. We were building an A&E, if you're not familiar with it, it's History Channel, Lifetime, A&E, Viceland, great company, love the people that I worked with there. And, they're still subject to the Nielsen panel. And if you're not familiar with the TV industry, Nielsen, despite, everybody's attempts to say, hey, we've got first party data solutions that are much better than this. And they are, NBC is probably the leading in that space. But still, Nielsen is holding the currency, which is the ratings. And so you have to look at the Nielsen panel. And if you look at the Nielsen panel, what we were doing at A&E was we were building k-means clusters based on certain metadata about the content that these clusters of Nielsen panelists were looking at, so that we could create these personalized recommendations for those different clusters. And so that we could offer those clusters up to advertisers who are interested in finding those clusters based on these behavioral analytics, right? So I think that the next iteration of recommendation is really going to come down to behavioral analytics, content analytics, especially as we think about, the retirement of the third-party cookie. which Google is going to be retiring. And how do you target those people? And I think that content analytics and behavioral analytics around that's going to be a big part of that equation.
Great. Hillary, I live in the New York City area, so I've attended Broadway shows and Knicks games, and every week I get an email from Ticketmaster with recommendations about games and events based on my interest and location and previous things I've attended. What's that next level for Ticketmaster around personalized recommendations?
Yeah, I love what Nate was saying about, delighting your customers. Ticketmaster, we're always looking for ways to improve our fan experience. Whether that's for finding events or the entry of events or buying tickets. We're always looking for ways to do things better. We have a distributed commerce channel, and we partner with different partners to find new and creative ways of bringing experiences to our fans. Recently, we worked with Snapchat and implemented a Snap Mini where you can, based on your preferences and location, you can see events that are near where you are right now that are happening, and share it with your friends. So it's just another way to bring together the digital and social with the physical events. So we're always trying to look for creative ways and stay ahead of the trends, and get fans excited about the events that are coming up. And it's really, really exciting stuff going on.
Very cool.
If I think about this, Nate, you had a lot of good points with behavioral analytics, content analytics, and bring all that together into that delightful experience. And I think one of the things that Hillary, you touched on is, Ticketmaster's move into the Snapchat world. Well, it's so much about what we can pull together, all those data points we learn about our customers, but then it's how we interact with them. So it's finding that way to create that delightful experience. And I know, Alex, you brought up the emails. I'm an email person and I prefer email. So happily I get my Ticketmaster recommendations on email, works for me. My daughter, mid-20s, if she got an email, she wouldn't see it for 6 weeks. Snapchat, Instagram, those are her tools of choice. So I think it's all about pulling together those data points that are so important and then tailoring them to that audience, and how different, just one generation is to how we want to communicate with those companies that we work with. So I think finding those pieces, pulling them together, that creating those analytics, and then delivering them in just the right way is kind of that key piece that makes that interaction actually happen.
Absolutely. That brings up a really good point. I used to love paper tickets. I have a ticket from my very first concert in a frame. It meant something to me. Hillary, talk to us a little bit about, now that everything is digital, what are the mementos for that next generation?
Yeah, people, the fan experience at concerts, it's a big deal. It's a personal experience. People want to remember it. One thing I would love to highlight, because I think this is really exciting, is with the Super Bowl, we offered NFTs as a digital commemorative piece for the fans who actually went to the Super Bowl. So it's finding new and creative ways to have those mementos of the event themselves. I think that we'll continue to explore the area and innovate there as well. But I love to see how that's taken off and the interest there.
Absolutely. Nate, I know with publications, very similarly, my mom used to clip every newspaper article that I was ever mentioned in growing up. And talk to us a little bit about kind of what you see as the mementos for the next generation.
I used to do the same thing. I mean, I grew up there in Northern Virginia, and it's the Washington football team. It was called the Redskins at the time, and now it's the Commanders. I would clip out all of those things as well, so I can certainly empathize with that. I think that we're gonna find ourselves in a world of people collecting things in different ways, right? And I think it's just going to be more fragmented. I think you're still going to have that nostalgia of people that want that physical memento, but you've also got this digital world, and you've got the NFTs. You've got people that are, as I was experiencing in the video game industry, willing to pay virtual currency for decorations for guns within their games, or if you think about Second Life, and that's been around since 2003, this whole metaverse thing is not something new. Back in HBO days, we were doing events within Second Life in like 2005, and offering these different things. And in that space, it was Linden dollars within the Second Life experience. And so people buying these things within these virtual environments to decorate themselves, whether it's virtual clothing or virtual handbags or virtual shoes, or those things. I think that's going to be a part of it. I think what you're going to see is fragmentation, though. I think there will always be a nostalgia for physical. I mean, look at the whole world of vinyl records. Like, people are just head over heels about vinyl records right now, still. And that's, a technology that dates back to what, 1920, in terms of vinyl. And, personally for me, I think 8-tracks are pretty cool. I'm currently in the market for an 8-track player and some 8-track devices. And that takes you back to 1970, just because there's something special about that. My first concert experience was, I think I saw Rush in the Washington, D.C. area. They were on some tour, and I went to go see them. And I went with my good friend, Rich Child, who was a big drummer, and Neil Peart is the drummer of Rush. And I was trying to collect everything that I could about Rush at that time, right? I'm dating myself here, I realize that. But I think you're going to see a fragmentation of these things that will span physical plus these digital mementos, as you call them.
Great. Yeah, you mentioned the metaverse. One of the few areas that has really shown a tangible need or a use for the metaverse is manufacturing. But how do you see the metaverse emerging for media and entertainment? Can you expand on that a little further?
Well, as a publishing company in the news industry, and I think about the terrible things that are going on in the world today. I just got off a call with some of my coworkers about some of the stuff that's going on over there in Ukraine right now. If you think about what does technology enable in terms of that killer use case, and how does data support that for a world that is, happening all around us, and with COVID locking us down for so many years here, how do you experience what's going on the other side of the world? How do you experience what's going on in Europe? How do you experience what's going on in Mexico or in Ukraine, right? How does virtual reality, how does augmented reality, how do those types of technologies enable us to understand everything that's going on there in a more tangible fashion, so that there isn't this victim's distance, as was a term that I used to know, that, makes it seem like it's something that's over there and I'm over here. And I think the world of the metaverse, the world of virtual reality, the world of augmented reality will allow us to feel that connection a little bit more closely, by bringing us there from a storytelling perspective, from a video journalism perspective, from a being on those front lines perspective, and understanding empathetically, here's what those citizens are feeling. Here's what it's like. I mean, this is some deep stuff. And so I think that, the world of the metaverse will open up a lot of those potential, and, allow us to be in those places in ways that we've never done before. And it's why I think that data is such a huge opportunity for us at Gannett, and why, bringing together a single source of truth for our customer data, our publication data, our market data is so critical, so that we can offer those experiences in a delightful way to consumers, whether that's through, print publications or digital publications or AR experiences or virtual experiences that can put you on the front lines over there, right? I mean, I just got off a call, and we were talking about our Olympics coverage in Beijing, and the amazing work that our journalists did over there in Beijing was incredible. And how can you bring the consumers into that environment in this world where they couldn't attend physically, right? They weren't selling tickets to go attend the Olympics. So how do you bring that same experience, though, to consumers in a delightful way in this metaverse world, in this virtual reality world? And how do you bring those content stories to them and allow for data to make those things possible?
Yeah, Nate, I love hearing the space that you come from. So for this and media side of the world, where the metaverse concepts might fit in, because I find it so interesting when I talk to just most people about the metaverse. What usually I hear is I don't really get it. I don't get what it is. It's kind of like cryptocurrency and NFTs. They're like things. They don't exist. So and I find that interesting because and one of my friends said to me just 2 days ago, he says, it's metaverse, he goes, it's just a rich man's folly. And I thought that'd be nice to just discount it that way. But in the mid 90s, people said that about the internet. Oh, why do car dealerships need to be up on the internet? Who's going to buy a car over the internet? Well, that's where my last four came from. So it happened. So I think it is the future. And what's interesting to me about it is you talk about having, what was it called? Your second, years ago. Yeah, you were working on.
Second Life's been around since.
Yeah, Second Life. Right. But most of us, we don't know what Second Life really is. So what I love about the metaverse concept is that they took it and made it public and said, here's this metaverse thing out there. And many of us mocked it or just kind of shook and said, I don't know what that is. But I think in each industry, and I know in the media and entertainment industry, the smart and creative people are going, aha, and it gets the wheels turning. And now they're creating ideas and thinking like years in the future, how are we going to grab onto this? And what are we going to do with it? While the rest of us out in the public space are just thinking Mark Zuckerberg is just, a creative rich guy doing some stuff, but it's brought it to the forefront of conversation. So people talk about it. And what that's going to change I think for the way you bring these things to the public is data adoption, that the adoption of these concepts will come much easier because we're all hearing about this. Even though I don't get it, you'll have a product and I'll go, oh, now I get it. This is metaverse, driven. And to me, it's going to just push it forward faster than even the internet could have came about. And you said it, Nate, you said data is key to all this. It's a catalyst behind it. And I think that's true because the metaverse is AI, it's AR. And what's behind those? Data. So companies like yours that have a grasp on data and its potential, I think are really going to be the ones that drive this. The creativity is going to come from the metaverse concepts out into public domain. And I'm pretty excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Eileen. And those are all great points. And none of these things are new. And I do believe you're right, that it is AI that is going to unlock these things. And the thing that unlocked AI was big data. You needed the data to train those AI models, right? AI is not new. It's been around since 1956. It saw its peak of inflated expectations on the Gartner hype cycle curve in the 1980s. And, with with IBM defeating Gary Kasparov in the 1990s, it went through its whole trough of disillusionment. It wasn't until big data came to the table to train those models that allowed for AI to really reach that plateau of productivity. And you're going to see the same thing, I believe, because AI is going to unlock all these amazing VR experiences, AR experiences. And if you think about VR and AR, those aren't new either. I mean, nope. VR has been around since 1962. There was this thing called the Sensorama that somebody created in 1962 that was basically the same thing as VR today. Go Google that at some point if you're curious. 1965 was when AR came around, augmented reality. Ivan Sutherland is the father of augmented reality. He created this in 1965. That's how long this has been around. It's just been waiting there for the content, for the AI to emerge. And the only thing that was the catalyst for that is what we're here to discuss today, which is the data. And so it's really up to us as industry professionals to understand how do we bring that data to the table to unlock the power of AI, whether that's in self-driving cars or recommendation engines or those things. We've got to bring this data to the table to make these things that have been around for decades really work at scale and leverage the network effects that we're seeing today from things and patterns that have been around across metaverse and AI and AR and VR. None of this is new. What's new is the data coming to the table to make it happen.
Yeah, I guess one way I think about this too is we're really seeing data become a first-class citizen, right? Where I think early in my career, data was the afterthought, and you do some monthly reporting off data, and that's how we use data. And now it's really coming to the forefront of how we build things and drive our businesses. So it's it's really interesting to see how data and the use of it has evolved, and it's gone from maybe sometimes an afterthought to first class citizen.
I have a couple more questions, but there was one that popped up in the chat that I thought would be interesting to kind of throw out at this group while we're on this discussion point. The question is, how do you balance personalization with the recent increase in privacy regulations worldwide?
Very carefully.
Yeah.
You want to create that personal experience. Specifically, Nate, you talked about delightful experiences. How do you do that without overreaching, without being too big brother-ish?
I mean, from my perspective, it really is about first and foremost being ethical in terms of how you leverage this data. When people talk about data governance, they often focus in on risk and security and PII. I tend to focus on data governance as a business side person, as how do you produce high quality data? However, data privacy security is still critical, and it's part of the equation. And what I say when people ask me about data privacy, security, et cetera, and they say, whose responsibility is that? I say it's everybody's responsibility. From the person collecting the data at a physical event, from those consumers that are literally filling out on a piece of paper and pencil their forms, you're dealing with PII at that point, right? So you need to first ensure that you've got good programs in place, that you're training everybody to treat PII appropriately and ethically, right? And then it eventually makes its way into the databases. Then you got to secure it and handle all the encryption and all that kind of stuff. When you get into PII, I mean, we're challenged in the GDPR world, right? Out of Europe. We're challenged in the legislation out of California. We're challenged in ways like that to anonymize these things. And you've got these safe rooms that are, anonymizing these things. LiveRamp is a good example of a company that offers some of that, anonymization. But what I think about, and this also comes into the conversation with publishers around retirement of the third-party cookie in 2023. The importance of that first-party data is going to be critical for all of us publishers, and we've got amazing first-party data at Gannett USA Today Network, and we're going to be offering that up in amazing ways. But you've also got to make sure that you're able to anonymize it so that you aren't Big Brother, following the person around who thinks suddenly because they had a conversation, in front of their cell phone that that shoe from Nike is now appearing everywhere because they were talking about a Nike shoe in front of their Facebook app or something like that, right? I mean, and we've all seen that, right? It's like, oh my God, I was just talking about this in the room, and now suddenly I'm on, this website, and the ads are following me around everywhere, right? So you've got to figure that balance out. And I think as you get into the world of how do you do that and create that delightful experience for them, that is meeting them, where their interests are, there are other ways of, dare I say, reverse engineering your way to that by looking at the content that is being consumed, not the person that's consuming it, but the type of content itself. Because and this is where I've done personally a lot of research in the television industry and for the Advertising Research Foundation, by analyzing the content itself, you learn a lot about, the dimensions of that content, the metadata of that content. That is something you can correlate to performance of brand advertising, for instance, right? And so you can take yourself away from, it's Alex viewing this thing to this type of content that Alex happens to be viewing is correlated to uplift in brand performance for Nike shoes. So there are ways of getting to the same outcome without sacrificing, that PII data or getting into that privacy world. And that's the realm of data science again, where you can start to find these proxy indicators that you can use to target to achieve the same outcome, but without knowing that, Alex is currently wearing red shoes. What color shoes are you wearing, Alex?
I'm not wearing shoes. Those are the joys of working from home.
Now you're going to get shoe ads.
I know. You mentioned, being on site at events and filling out forms, and it makes me think that we've spent a decade focused on digital experience. And now that on site events are coming back, Hillary, I'd love to know your thoughts maybe about how you see that emerging symbiosis in media and entertainment transitioning back into the physical world.
So, we're so excited that live events are coming back. There's just been an unprecedented response there. So that's really great to see. But live events are inherently, they're social. So you could be talking about the social aspect of physically going to a sporting event, physically, going to a concert or any other kind of event. But there is a partner to that, and that's the digital social experience of it. So you share that experience on your social networks. You can share the fact that you're buying a ticket on your social networks. When you want to go back and relive that event, you would probably go into your pictures or your digital media and relive and experience that event again. So they're so closely tied together that they naturally complement each other. And I would say the digital experience probably helps your live experience live on more clearly in a longer time. So it's neat to see, and all the things that you can do with the data. And it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to evolve.
Yep. Nate, I know that Gannett has one of the largest events business in the States in regards to local sponsorship. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that digital and physical symbiosis kind of coming together for Gannett?
Yeah, I think, and that's one of the special things about Gannett is, we have the ability to bring together that massive footprint of local plus national, the largest footprint for, news publishing in the States, with the events business, which is also the largest there through USA Today Network Ventures. And they sponsor, like you think about your local triathlons or the bike races. They just announced one yesterday. I think it was in Colorado, perhaps, for 2,000 bicyclists that are coming together in a giant race, right? So these big events that are happening in the States, bring those things together. And how do you create, once you centralize that data, these really wonderful experiences where you can learn more about consumer behavior across one and the other to offer them, something that might be really interesting to them on digital or maybe physical or in an event world. I think that it's a really special experience. So I think that as we think about bringing together into a single source of truth that customer data, you can offer some really unique and compelling national plus local experiences that are inclusive of events. Like I'm mentioning, you could find that people, for instance, that are huge consumers of sports content might be people that have a strong affinity for, joining a triathlon, just as one example, right? And so the more that we can bring that stuff together, the more that we can start to unlock new value for those consumers in new ways. And that's what's really exciting to me, because I think that we've got, a superpower here, which is local at Gannett, in terms of that local footprint, that local connection to consumers, and being able to bridge that with local content plus in-life experiences, as we're all desperate for those coming out of this COVID lockdown, right?
It's funny, Nick, you say that. I find that there's a pendulum swing in most concepts that are out there, and we went from a very physical world, and we swung digital pretty hard in many ways, right? If it could be digitized, we digitized it. Everything became a data point. And I find that the pendulum swinging back now that maybe it's the end of the pandemic, and we actually just want that human touch piece again. But I look at something as simple as you mentioned, vinyl records. my husband and I have recently just gotten back into big, wish I hadn't sold this trunk full of them 20 years ago, but this big collection of vinyl records and a new turntable. And we ended up redoing our entire family room to fit the turntable, basically. So a whole new shelving set, the whole thing. But so I love that. But, you know, so for years we'd gone fully digital. Everything was on our phone. It was an account that we have our music on. And now most of the albums that we purchase come with a little ticket, and I can use my QR code and download it so that when I'm at home, I have my great vinyl. But then when I get in the car, I plug in my phone and I have it there. And I love that they've connected the two. So I haven't had to give up one for the other. And I haven't had to think hard about it either, because it gets a little QR code. It's simple. But and I think that it brings together that whole piece we've been talking about with data here and our consumers is the more we know about them, the more companies can put these pieces together for us in a way I didn't even know I wanted to have that same album on my phone as I wanted in the living room. So I think those two pieces are coming together, and I know Ticketmaster does it well. I've done, you know, Hillary and I have talked a lot about their space, and I love hearing how Gannett does this from the local perspective and bringing together what's happening in my local market as I read national news, and to pull those two pieces together to what is of interest to me outside of the news world. So taking it out of that one space, but pulling those parts together in a way, again, I wasn't expecting, but in a way I appreciate. So I think it's that pendulum swing for me is hitting that center space that is good to feel.
Great. So the question you've all been waiting for, Nate, in our teaser video for this event, we asked you to tell us about one really cool thing that Gannett USA Today is working on that you can talk to us about. And you mentioned that you're very focused on being customer obsessed, and data is a huge opportunity for your growth journey ahead. Tell us a little bit more about this customer data platform that is being implemented in 2022 and how that supports being customer obsessed.
Sure. And, you know, you think about the journey that a lot of companies are on that go through big M&A activity. Well, we're one of those. And so the reason that we are, you know, the largest publisher of local plus national news in the United States here is because, you know, Gatehouse Media came together with Legacy Gannett 2 years ago to form that current version of Gannett. And you can imagine all the system integrations that have to happen for that, all the data integrations that have to happen for that. And the key here is, and you know, the really special, compelling, and unique thing about Gannett is the ability to bring all of that together. Like we just announced, for instance, that with one USA Today subscription, you now have access to over 200 e-editions of all of the local publications in the country, right? That's a new thing. You can just get that with one subscription. You can now read, in my case, it's, you know, I'm a big Notre Dame fan, so South Bend Tribune. So I can subscribe to USA Today, and I suddenly now have access to the e-edition of South Bend Tribune or the Bergen Record, or you know, something from Northern Virginia, which is where I grew up, and all of that. But what's also exciting though is in that migration and in those M&A activities, bringing together all of this, you know, it's a huge lift, but to bring together into a single source of truth, all of that customer data now allows us to present to that customer, you know, all of these unique and compelling nationwide, if not global offerings that might be interesting to them by bringing all of this content and consumer data together. And so in support of that, you know, from my perspective, what we're doing is we're building that single source of truth across all of these hundreds of publications, the customer data, the publication data, the market data, the competitive data, so that we can offer these unique experiences like what I just mentioned with the e-editions that we just made available across the country. Really cool stuff. And so where do you put that all though? We've got our data lakehouse infrastructure that's going to be, you know, our core modern data platform. But to activate that in real time, to present that personalized experience in real time, whether that's through personalized experiences on the product itself or through custom customer journeys, or whether it's through personalized newsletters or whatever it happens to be, that's where we can leverage a CDP solution. And so the customer data platform solution that we're implementing right now is with a company called mParticle. That's the vendor that we've chosen as our CDP partner. And we're currently going through implementing those core use cases using this now centralized single source of truth for customer data. So I'm really excited about that. I've worked with different CDP vendors in the past. One was called Treasure Data. And prior to that, before the CDPs emerged, it was this world of DMPs, if you remember those data management platforms. So things like I've worked with Blue Kai in the past, or Crux in the past. But now we're in this world of CDPs that can really activate these things in real time. So I'm super excited about implementing that here at Gannett in 2022, so that we can enable that real-time, personalization within the product itself, real-time personalization within the newsletters, in that customer journey over the first month that they subscribe to one of our publications, whether it's a local publication or a national one. Really cool stuff.
Very cool. Single source of truth, such a great way to kind of end this conversation and pull everything together. Thank you so much to our panelists, Aileen, Nate, and Hillary, and all our participants that are joining live today. Appreciate you joining and tuning in, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you in the future.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.